everybody. Hi, pod friends. It's Bob Rivers here. And boy, a little bit has happened since the last time we all got together, especially with our classic team of Bob, Spike, and Joe. I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about tonight. The big announcement, and it has nothing to do with me, that Jack and Spike are the midday hosts at Cairo now, and Jack Stein and Spike O'Neill are now heard every day from noon to 3. Downtown Joe continues to work his miracles, mentoring and inspiring the broadcasters of tomorrow, many of whom are winning awards. The other big news involves our dear departed friend and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame drummer for Yes, and of course, John Lennon and Yoko Ono, and that's Alan White. There's going to be a film about Alan. All of that's coming up in the Bob, Spike, and Joe Pop-Up Podcast. Welcome, everybody. Hi, guys.
Hey, boss.
Hello. It's been a little while since I've seen you, even virtually.
I love, Spike, that you called me boss. Even when you couldn't stand me and I was an asshole boss, you used to call me boss.
I'm smart enough to know who to follow around to get to the finish line. At least I've learned that much in my life. I used to hang out with the Maroons, and then I met you. So,
oh, that's sweet of you. Yeah, we've got the decades of maturity that have added to all the fun and drama we used to have, which was some of the most fun.
2 burned hands. Look at that. Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
So, all right. And Joe, you know about this too. In fact, I think you said you're going to have a field trip with your class to go see Jack and Spike. Is that right?
Yes. Cairo, Bonneville. I'm in, I think, my 9th year of teaching now, and I've got 6 full classes, 180 kids or something. But my first period class is all about learning how to do a great morning show. And they're going live a couple hours every morning. So we're going to take one day off, and we're going to fill the bus up, and we're going to go down to Bonneville, and we're going to watch their sports morning show. We're going to watch their news morning show. We're going to talk to a few people about how to do a great morning show. And then depending on what time Spike gets to work, I'll talk to him and Jack as well, if we can get it in before we have to get the kids back for 3rd period. So excited.
We prep the show. We prep the show in the building. So we'll be there by the time before you guys wrap up. So I'd love to see you. Yeah.
All right. That's fun. So the big announcement, Spike, you were filling in for months. You and Jack, what an amazing duo. First of all, I'll say this. I know your talent. I know your decades of experience. I know your incredible connection to the city of Seattle and the people of Seattle because of all the enjoyment you've brought him over the years. But along comes this guy, Jack Stein. And not what I would have predicted. Jack is, and he's honest about all of this stuff. So I think I'm going to say I would say anything wrong. But he's young. He's 35 years old still.
Yeah, 35.
I would have thought he would have turned 36 in the last few days.
His birthday's coming up actually pretty soon. He's going to become 36 pretty soon. So, and he's not secret about his life too. He's a recovering addict. He's got a couple of degrees under his belt. He knows what he's talking about. And in spite of all that, he's a conservative. I don't understand how he got there. But he's got a conservative view on life and a libertarian view on American life, and so we're a pretty good mix of opposing viewpoints, if I am kind about it. So
I think you guys are more than that. I think you're both thoughtful, and that makes it easy to listen to you speak because you talk to each other with respect, and it's not a divisive show. So to me, that's everything.
That was a goal going in. Was we didn't want to have arguments. We didn't want to throw blame around. That seems to be the fastest way to success in syndication. And
I know you're going to blow it. You're going to blow it.
Yeah, I know.
Torches and pitchforks.
I'm telling you. Yeah, the Bible and Band-Aid store is always empty, but the torch and pitchfork store they're sold out every day.
That's right.
It's been a fun journey to get to know Jack. And, I never thought I've said this before to the audience, and I appreciate them, but me be redundant. I didn't think I'd ever get to do this again. And I can honestly tell you that I would have jumped at the chance. I would have partnered with anything. I don't mean anybody. I'd have talked to a bust of Abraham Lincoln if they'd let me do it on the radio. But to get somebody like Jack,
you'd have gone on a right-wing station and pretended to be a right-wing flamethrower. Let's be honest.
I could throw that BS about. I really could. I could be disingenuous and talk about stuff I don't know anything
for
about.
Natural gas for a while and how wonderful
I
it is.
Was. Hey man, it's heating up, clean energy, burning bright, buddy. Natural gas. That's what. Yes, I would have and could have jumped any chance to land somebody of Jack's intellect and integrity. I can't believe how lucky I am to do this twice in my life.
All right, let's talk a little about his intellect, because I find him a little intimidating. He has, almost like that lawyer, pretend lawyer on Suits, he has what appears to be a bit of a photographic mind for facts and stories. Is that what you see too?
I've learned more in the last 6-7 months working with him, and this is no knock on you two guys. We got to hang out with our best friends for 25 plus years, and I mean
our best dumb friends. Go ahead, just say it. It's fine.
You guys didn't throw a lot of 5-syllable words around, and I have to often look stuff up on my phone while we're talking, Jack and I. Oh, okay, that's what that means. Yeah, I can go with that. He's got references and he cites examples and he can quote facts and figures like nobody I've ever met in my life. It's amazing.
Mm. And I'm glad that you are learning to love a conservative. It's something I've felt you've needed in your life for a long time.
So many have let me down in the past, Bob. It's nice that I found one that actually, it's fun. Yeah. It's fun. I don't want to hang around people that agree with me exclusively anyway. I mean, it's always nice to be reaffirmed in what you think, but it's better to have to look at things from a different perspective. We play a game called Devil's Advocate on the air, and you and I used to do this all the time. You taught me how to do this, but to earnestly investigate and debate on a view you disagree with. It's just like debate camp in any good school, and I have to take a position that I firmly disagree with and argue it or debate it or discuss it, I should say, with sincerity. And it's amazing. You get to walk up a mile in somebody else's jack boots is how I often say it,
Well, all right, you're on your way. How I look at that is angel's advocate. How I look at it is
I like it.
It's not possible for, let's pick a number, but it's not possible for 35% of the people to be 100% wrong on this side and think that the 35% on the other side are 100% wrong. And then there's people in the middle who are like, almost like agnostic, who say, I actually don't know, but I'm going to listen and try to go with my gut. That's how I view the middle. But I think that what you're doing is what the whole world needs more of now, is empathy, understanding, love. We came up in a time, classic rock was being made. Songs were about peace and love. And, for a while, boomer generation, you guys are a little younger than me, but we thought that everybody should come together and love each other. And in the current media world, in the environment with which we live, the business model is the more drama and anger and resentment you can create, it's the only way you can cut through the clutter. So it feels like time for a shift in how people communicate, and I feel like it comes from the ground. Well, it's funny. From us, it comes from the top down, because it's fine that Jack and I want to have this conversation that's respectful and open-minded. But the fact that we work for a company that doesn't want us to just burn torches and carry pitchforks, that's amazing to me. Bonneville Broadcasting has a mission statement on the wall that practically brought a tear to my eye. It's so good. All right. Well, congratulations to you, Jack.
I'll have to read it someday. I don't know what it is.
You walk by it every day. And no, you know. And Joe, I know you didn't jump in here because you probably are working all the time he's on the air and you haven't had a chance to listen much, right?
Not much, although we were knocked off the air a couple days ago, and I said, here's a chance. Let's listen to Jack and Spike. We turned it on, and you guys were talking something about racism, and it sounded like a good conversation, but I started seeing my kids playing on their phones and all that, and it's like, Okay, let's get back to it here. But I love that you're on noon to 3 because that's when I'm running out of gas. I work 6 to 10 just like we used to, but I work 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So my afternoon classes can get. I mean, I'm going to say, I'll find out what your topic is and listen to you, but I don't get a chance to listen because I literally have 6 classes out of 7 periods. I'm not used to that. I've got to the point to where it's pretty long days, but I need to listen to more commercial radio, and I kind of miss that. But really, what I miss is the stuff. I mean, every time I open my cable bill, I miss commercial radio. How's the stuff, Spike? Are you getting
free stuff? No,
free stuff.
Free
yes.
stuff.
Not yet.
You still have a free Netflix account, Joe, that you got like 20 years ago?
Yeah, we don't talk about that. Yeah. So far, I'm still good on that.
And I know you're holding on to those Bitcoin certificates that you took.
No, I don't know where those are, but I'm going to dig around. But
Do you get free stuff these days, Spike?
Not really, not yet. It's funny. Our indoor, and this is kind of inside baseball for folks, but when Dory Monson passed away last Christmas, he was like the number one endorser in the city. And when Dory passed, all of his advertisers kind of fell into a panic. Who's going to deliver our message to our customers? So they kind of went and scrambled, and they found a bunch of folks who are all established in the marketplace, whether it's John Curley, whether it's Brock Heward, Dan Lewis, the news anchor, Dave Wyman,
Ross,
the former Seahawk, Dave Ross, and Brandy Cruz, who's a conservative voice in this town, who speaks more to Dory's audience than I do. So those advertisers all took comfort in established voices, and those contracts are still playing themselves out. And Jack and I are just getting started. We have to find our way and build our audience. And, we just got announced officially. Yeah, I'm patient about it. I'm looking forward to Joe to gutter helmets and, solar panels and whatever else they need me to run around. But, I'll lie about having rats if I have to. That's one thing. Bob, you set a standard when we got to do commercials for folks. We would never talk about or endorse something that we didn't use, yes, and genuinely be a part of our lives. So, I got approached about doing a couple things already for endorsements, but it's not something that I had used in the past or truly, I didn't want to go and make up something or endorse something I didn't have faith in. So I had to pass on a couple things.
Can you let us know what it is you turned down?
I can tell you the product, but not the name, if that's because it's general enough. I was asked to endorse a weight loss method, and I was really lucky that I got to do a 30-10 endorsement for a long time. And I was asked to do some other weight loss method. I said, you know what? I'm not a fan, and I don't know that it would work, and I don't have the 6 months. If you want me to do it for 6 months and then jump in, he goes, no, they want somebody now. Like, I can't do that. So
yeah. And
I can do that. I mean,
I know. Move up, eat less, and move around more. Yeah.
Or get diabetes, and they'll give you. I'm on that Ozempic. I'm up to the full dose now, and
wait a minute.
I'm not trying to lose. Kelly complains that I'm not losing enough, but I've lost probably since the last time we did a podcast at least 20 more pounds. I mean,
know what? I did kind of, and you know how I knew, Joe? Your shirt.
Wow.
Your shirt has all this extra space in it.
I mean, I'm slumped over, but if I want to set up and look official, I won't say I'm svelte, but I just turned 60 and I'm feeling more energy. And I'm not getting paid for this, by the way.
Ozempic? Can you sing a song?
Yeah, it's an unsolicited endorsement here, but I'll tell you that stuff, it works. I mean, it really does. And I'm not getting paid. I miss getting paid. I put a floor in my house this summer. I had 2 gates built, and I paid for them. I can't even talk about what a good job anybody did.
I love that we're on this topic because I used to love the free shows, except I had to leave at 8:45 because I had to get up at 4 a.m. And now I can stay up as late as I want. And we live in Las Vegas and we go to shows all the time. And I will say this, the taxes here in Nevada, we're saving many thousands of dollars in taxes, no income tax, super low property taxes. But you know who's getting all of that money? Ticketmaster.
The casinos. Oh, Ticketmaster.
Ticketmaster. Oh, yeah. And I remember, Joe, you used to do this all the time. Shows coming on. Do you join the fan club? Do you get a pre-sale? And then if you see something, do you like, so a couple of weeks ago, Pat Benatar and what's her husband, Neil Giraldo, come
Neil
on.
Giraldo.
Yeah, they double bill each other now because it kept their marriage together. Anyway, I happened to click just as it went on, and I bought some tickets for the third row. And I was so excited, except that I realized I already have other tickets for that same night to something else. And so now I always am reminded of Joe and any scalping or any reselling of tickets, because I remember I think he bought 1,000 Wiggles tickets at one point and maybe lost.
I bought a couple rows worth, not 1,000, but Wiggles and Barney, I both. Wiggles were fine. Barney, I got burned bad on that.
Yeah, I might make out okay. And by the way, you'll be surprised what I'm preferring to go to over Pat Benatar.
Yeah, I was curious. What gets your priority instead of Pat Benatar?
There is a place here called the Smith Center for the Performing Arts, which is spectacular. Think Everett, only bigger, and 3,000-4,000 people. Think like if the Everett Performing Arts Center was combined with Benaroya Hall. Spectacular.
Okay.
Balconies, fantastic sound, and they do a lot of tribute bands. And so there is a band called Rumors of Fleetwood Mac. You can look them up on YouTube. And I've got to say, I mean, we have now reached a point, and God bless all the original artists, all the original singers, but we've now reached a point where some of the 45-year-olds that are doing these tribute bands, they have big production here in Vegas too. And so I looked at their videos and I'm like, this looks better than the last Fleetwood Mac concert I saw. So that I got front row tickets for. But the problem is that's a nonprofit, and it wasn't on my Ticketmaster. So when I was looking at my Ticketmaster, I was like, I don't have anything that night. Quick, got to get to Pat Benatar. And so now I'm reselling them. You've done that, Joe, right?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I just sold some tickets so I could be with you guys tonight. And I only got half what I paid, but that's okay. So how much do you have them posted for?
Well,
face value?
Well, no, I haven't posted for what the show's almost sold out. And these are third row center in front of, third row aisle right near the stage. And someone in the sixth row posted theirs for like $388 a ticket. It's Vegas. Tickets go for big money.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's some that are over 400. So I went, I'll just go with $388 and I'll lower it 2 days before if it hasn't sold. But I would actually, this has never happened. I would actually make a profit if I sell those. But it's that feeling of risk that nobody buys it. That I don't like. It's scary. All right, we've got about a little less than a half hour left. And a couple things I wanted to get to. First off, Joe, you have discovered maybe one of the best touring bands out there. You just saw them. And I just saw the Foo Fighters. Yeah.
Yeah, well, these guys aren't the Foo Fighters, but talk about a tribute band. What a tribute band. Their name is Kansas. I don't know if any of them are really ever in Kansas. Well, actually, I do. They had one guy who was the original guy, and then they had several, and a couple have been there probably for 15 to 20 years. But then they about 2/3 of the way through, they go, and we want to bring out our original drummer. And he came out and wailed, but he only played, maybe a quarter of the show. But what a great show. It took me 50 years to go see Kansas. This is their 50th anniversary tour. And a progressive rock guy like myself. I mean, I've seen, Genesis, Jethro Tull, ELP, just about anybody from that era and that genre. I've seen multiple times, but somehow I missed Kansas this whole time. And I did see them at the Paramount. And the person that talked me into going actually was Emily, who was 24. And I said, oh, yeah, you probably like Dust in the Wind. She said, well, I don't really know that, but I love Carry On My Wayward Son. And I said, oh, okay, well, let's go see Kansas. And they were, a great show. And some people had told me.
Yeah. You were not the first person to tell me. Ben Carlstrom saw them in Vancouver and said it possibly is the best show he's ever seen. They were so amazing, well produced, and true to the originals. And you know, I mean, we're gonna segue into our Alan White discussion, but what is a band? I mean, is it just the people who made the record, or is a band like a touring Broadway show that that pushes out, that actually, I'm trying to think of the right word, that that celebrates a body of work, a portfolio of music? Because here's the thing about classic rock. A lot of our classic rockers are in their 80s now, right? What should happen? Should people still tour playing their music? I say yes. Ironically. But and here's the thing. Even like I saw Foreigner, best Foreigner concert I've ever seen. And people go, well, it's just Kelly Hansen and it's a tribute act. And I go, Kelly's been singing with them for 20 years. Yeah. And so the other thing that's happening, Joe, and you mentioned your daughter, the rights and publishing for all of these music, including like your dearly beloved Bruce, Fleetwood Mac, David Crosby, Bob Dylan, they are selling their catalogs, which in our day, back in the peace and love days, we might have thought, well, that's selling out. Like, sell your song to a car or to Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. But that's not really what it is. What they're doing is investors are investing in their content and art. And those investors have one goal. They want to grow the value of that music. And that's what I think the live touring bands are doing. They're growing the value of that. Because look, if a tree falls in the forest, no one hears it. But
Kanye can sample it and make a whole album. Yeah,
he can.
Absolutely, you bet.
So anyway, the Kansas thing I heard from Ben, and then when I heard it from you and a couple of other people, I went, I actually did a search, and I guess they're not coming to Vegas. I would fly to see them.
Well, they will eventually, because it's their 50th anniversary tour, and I bought Emily the shirt, and it says Kansas is a band established 1974. So they're starting their 50th anniversary and a year early. So I got them at 49 and a half years, actually. So they'll be out there all next year doing this tour. So I bet they'll be in Vegas. And I think, it's only one letter off. A band is a brand. I mean, it's really, these classic bands become brands, and they will continue on to play, I think, for sure.
I think you're right.
And Neil Young on the publishing,
but only
Neil
if
Young.
Okay, you go ahead on Neil Young. I was going to say only if they're great. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they have to be great. And these guys, like the fiddle player, and I couldn't tell you his name, but one of my friends that's a big fan, and says, this guy's the best one they've had out of the last 3 or 4. It's like they're getting a different fiddle player just about every tour, but this guy was amazing. And I got to say, he does the job. Neil was talking about selling the publishing because, Neil Young was, I ain't singing for, Pepsi. This note's for you.
This note's for you. Yeah.
He refused to sell his stuff for commercials. But now he says, I don't want to hassle with it. And I don't want to leave it for my family to hassle with and fight over. If somebody
to
wants
hire accountants to forensically go over the record company's sales figures, you sell it to a company with lots of lawyers who their job is to make sure that Neil Young's music lives forever. And 1,000 years from now, let me, this is one of my favorite things. 1,000 years from, well, let me put it this way. No one goes to Benaroya Hall and says, Mozart, Beethoven, those are just tribute bands. I don't want to see the symphony.
Right. It's the music. It's the songs. It's the compositions. And Neil said, you want to give me a few $100 million right now? And I that's good enough that I never have to tour unless I want to. And Neil's last tour, by the way, he came to White River Amphitheater on a weeknight with just him and his guitar. And he said in advance, I'm not going to play anything you want to hear. I'm going to play stuff I haven't played in a while. Maybe if you're a real fan, you'll want to hear some. And then he said, and no scalping. He said, I'm going to make it impossible for you to scalp. And I said, Neil, you're coming on a weeknight to the worst venue in the area, which is you and your guitar, and you're not going to play anything anybody wants to hear. I don't think scalping is going to be the problem, but he can be who he wants to be. He never has to worry about money again for the rest of his life because he's got hundreds of millions of dollars from just making one deal, and everybody in his family is taken care of for many generations to come.
And we now live in an environment where art is multi-generational. We're in the digital environment. Didn't exist hundreds of years ago. So we're in this, had to be written down, all that Beethoven. But we're in an environment where the recordings, the original recordings, are being used in movies for young children. Like my granddaughter Hazel knows Fly Like an Eagle and Instant Karma because they were in a Minions movie. So it's fascinating for me to see, and leads us into our the thing we were teasing about tonight, and our friend Alan White. First off, Yes is a band. It's one of my core musical loves. I think Yes to me is as big as Springsteen is to Spike, and the Grateful Dead are to Joe, because I know you guys really well, and I know, Joe, you cried when Jerry Garcia passed away, and Spike, you would do anything.
I cried when Clarence died. Remember, we had Jim King come in and play the Jungle End solo in our studio the day Clarence passed. So I hear what you're saying about Yes.
So I'll tell you a little bit of me and Yes. The year was about 1976. So I was 19 or 20 years old. And I just already loved everything from that band from the moment I first heard it, and those records, were astounding records. And so, the first time I saw Yes in 1977, they were playing in the Round in a place called the New Haven Coliseum, and that would be the first time I saw Alan White. I didn't know at the time that I would ever meet him. I didn't know at the time anything other than this is good dope, and I love this band.
What more do you need in the world, man?
What else do you need? Well, at 19 years old, for sure. And
the girl, yeah.
We don't have time for the whole long story, but as years would go by, the band Yes went through so many different incarnations that I believe the running total of full-time members of Yes is somewhere around 30. I believe there have been 4 or 5 different lead singers, although obviously you have to say that John Anderson made the records and is a god. I mean, I wouldn't say anything less about him.
Everybody who sang for Yes did a good John Anderson.
Well,
right, and that's no disrespect intended, but come on.
No, I like the way you're saying that, but I have to say, and this relates to our previous discussion about touring acts like Kansas and Foreigner. John Davison, the current singer, is so astoundingly good, and there is no disrespect for John Anderson possible, because John literally created that art in the studio and spent 40, 50 years off and on, because he was in and out of the band. But John Davison right now is the real deal, and it's a real Yes concert. And so, and of course, the rest of the band, most of them have been in Yes. Jeff Downs has been in Yes before. Billy Sherwood, bass player, filled in when Chris had a heart attack, and he was in Yes before. And so it's an elite group of players. Jay Shellen, the drummer, was, of course, chosen by Alan to be his successor, and Billy Sherwood was chosen by Chris Squire. And then you've got Steve Howe. So even though there have been some competing versions of Yes, in the sense that Anderson, Wakeman, and
Anderson, Buford, Wakeman, and Howe,
and then the Trevor one, because John Anderson loves, and why shouldn't he? I mean, he's the voice of the records, and from time to time he wants to tour. and when he wants to tour. What I love is that it just happens. I mean, there's multiple versions out there sometimes, but I must tell you, this lineup right now that is touring, yes, and they are on, I think it's a 3-month or so tour. We got to see them, most of them, Steve Howe wasn't there, at Alan White's Celebration of Life at the Paramount last October. And I want to bring on Mike McMorrow, who is one time a producer of our show way back in the dope smoking 80s. I don't remember exactly.
The first when we came to Seattle, Mike was our man in Seattle.
Right.
There would definitely never have been Bob, Spike, and Joe without Michael. He's the one who introduced me to you characters. So we were friends at college.
I really do owe you, Mike, don't I? Oh, shit,
yeah, that's the way I came to meet you guys.
So it's North Bend and Joe Bryant.
Yeah.
Well, great times back then. I still remember it. As short of time as it was, though. But having you guys move into Seattle and
well, that's because you worked for a hothead asshole who hadn't really figured out how to get all his relationships together.
Right.
But
yeah. We won't name names. But.
No. But over the years, we've stayed close and tight, and you've done some amazing work. And Gigi, when Alan passed, of course, turned to Mike McMorrow, who's got tons of experience producing shows, and said, will you produce this Celebration of Life? And Gigi called me, actually sat down with me and Lisa at a Mexican restaurant in North Bend and said, I have a big ask. Would you be the MC? And I thought, I'm not really the MC. But all I could say was, yes, sure. If you ask me, I have to. And so Mike and I had a little discussion back then. I was going through my big surgery, and I think I asked you, can we record it? And you were like, damn straight, we're going to record it. And you got 4 video cameras, which is low budget, not big production. And we got to record the multi-track audio. And so what I have is a teaser for you guys. And Mike is looking at me very carefully because there's things I can't say. But this is coming together into a film that is a tribute to not just, John Lennon and Alan White, but a tribute to the 50 years that he was the foundation, the glue that held that whole franchise and all of those people together, and that continues to this day with his chosen successor, Jay, and Chris's chosen successor, Billy Sherwood. And so I've gotten to know a little bit about those guys, and we cannot show you any video, but we can play you a little audio clip of some of the songs from that night that are going to be in the film. Are you ready? Rip.
Ready.
I've seen all good people turn their heads each day, so satisfied I'm on my way. I've seen all good people turn their heads each day, so satisfied I'm on my way.
Do you hear me at the end?
I did.
Amazing.
You did a great job singing and emceeing that night too. You were really helped me out a lot. I was still recovering. What do you think, Joe?
Oh, that was a fun night, and just puts a smile on my face just to even hear that little bit. I mean, what a great night, and what a great guy, and just a great friend. September 12th is Alan White Day. By decree of the former mayor of Newcastle. And a couple weeks ago, we were able to celebrate, and, just a good friend to us all, a good neighbor, and and Gigi too, such a good person. And I think
to the whole community, Joe.
The one thing I was concerned about Alan had so many stories, and so many times I was like, oh, why am I not just running a tape recorder when we're out and hearing this guy? And I'm really glad that somebody is making, a lasting legacy to this man, because I know he's special to us, but he's a big part, and he's a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame member. Yes, he's a rock star, but he's not one that's going to be out there. If he were still around to toot his horn, would not be tooting it. And I'm just glad that Michael and you guys are taking this on, and I can't wait to see what comes of it, because it's going to be a heck of a project.
Let's ask the three of us, four of us, including Michael, your favorite moment with Alan White that you remember.
I'll start. So one of them was one of the first music projects that I worked with him on, and a project called Synergy in Northwest. We were raising money for the Music Matters license plate campaign and playing the first of many shows that we had done together with full orchestra, his band White, a lot of other performers that we all know and love up here from the Pacific Northwest. And we were sitting beside the stage. We were getting ready for the first one. We were in Tacoma, the Temple Theater, and the orchestra lights went out, and we couldn't figure out what was going on, and we obviously couldn't, lift the curtain until the orchestra players could see and we could start the show. And we did figure out what had happened pretty quickly. Randy Hansen had stepped on some plug on the side of the stage and unplugged all the orchestra lights. We got it plugged back in, and Alan looked at me and must have seen the sheer panic on my face and just looked at me, and this was so Alan, and said, Michael, everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be fine. And it was a phenomenal show. And that always seemed to be one of his mantras over and over again, not just with me, but other people. That was just his attitude of, no matter how big or small or whatever situation, everything, don't sweat it. Everything's going to be great. I still remember that to this day. And when I get into some situations where I'm freaking out. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always think of Alan's little voice going, it's going to be all right. All
right, Joe, you're up next.
Okay. Well, I could tell you a few, and I don't know if I could say I have a favorite moment, but one that stands out to me, and maybe because I do have Mariners on the brain a little right now, because Alan and I, we went to a lot of ball games. We celebrated holidays. We hung out at the pub beyond the music. But one night we're walking out of the Mariners game, and Ed, the tuba guy, and may he rest in peace as well, is out there blowing on his tuba. And me and Alan had a beer too. And we walk up and he said, "Do you take requests?" And he said, "For $5, I do." And Alan says, "Well, will you play Owner of a Lonely Heart by Yes?" And he says, "I don't know that song." I'm trying to do Ed the Tuba Guy.
No, Ed the Tuba Guy, you got him down perfectly, actually. I don't need his own family to know the difference.
Yes, Alan said, "Well, I helped write that song. I can teach it to you." And he goes, "Okay." And he said, wow. So Alan teaches him Owner of a Lonely Heart on the tuba. And he plays it, and we applaud him, and everybody applauds him. And we start to walk away. He goes, "Where's my $5?" That was a request. so Alan gives him $10, and we go, "That was great." And then I'm at a game about 3 weeks later, and I hear this. He's still playing. He actually learned it, took to it, and liked it.
Love it. All right, Spike, you get yours in.
First I want to premise this by saying, I wouldn't know Alan White if it weren't for Joe. And because when Alan met Joe, when these guys met at your local pub in Factoria, wasn't it? It was the Mustard Seed. Is that Factoria officially?
Well, the Factoria pub was maybe the first place we connected peripherally, but the Mustard Seed is really where we got to know each other in Newport Hills there. Yeah.
And what I love about that part of this whole thing is that Joe will treat everybody like they're somebody special, regardless of who they are or what they've accomplished. And Alan is exactly the same way. Alan treated everybody with such respect and admiration. The first time I met Alan, Joe brought him to our show, and he had so much kind and flattering things to say about what we do, what we had done as a radio show. I was like, I'm getting this from Alan White. I mean, I knew full well what this guy had accomplished in his life. But whether it was whatever we were doing, Alan was always Alan, regardless of the circumstance or what was being asked of him or how many people were relying on Alan. Gigi with 100 tickets backstage trying to make the family all comfortable. You know, Alan's guest list was longer than anything I've ever seen in my life. But when we played, not just the Synergia shows that Mike put together, but when we played the Imagine a Cure shows at Snoqualmie Casino that Alan and Gigi put together to help, raise money for breast cancer research. And I got to stand on stage with the likes of Yes, where there's Chris Squire, there's Trevor Rabin, there's Taylor Hawkins, there's Elliot Easton of the Cars, there's Roger Daltrey, and the way they looked up to Alan White and the way that he brought those people into my life, and I can't begin to. But Alan was just a buddy. I didn't look at Alan as he was on the par with all those people easily. Surpassed many of their accomplishments, but he was always just Alan White, a great guy, and a neighbor and a friend.
In his eulogy, a friend to everyone he met. So it wasn't like you were special because of you were a friend. You were special because the universe put you two together and you got to experience him. All right, mine's a quick one. My gratitude to Gigi over the years. I always felt bad because I knew how busy she was. And Alan, we would do things. He would come over and watch a football game. One day I had extra Pearl Jam tickets. We went into Pearl Jam, and I couldn't believe that this huge rock star was a friend of mine. Honestly, because I'm very insecure, as you guys all know. At one point, probably just not that long ago, 3-4 years ago, Andrew, my son, was playing comedy in North Bend at the North Bend Theater. And I got a call from Gigi, and she said, "The show is sold out. Is there any way you could get me and Alan in?" Yeah, if I have to kick the door in myself and bring a chair, of course I would. And they were the same, like, "Oh, would you mind helping us out, with tickets?" And then one other thing about Alan is, I don't know if I've told anybody this before. When I retired from the show, after 25 years, I was a little burned out. But I also retired for a specific unfulfilled dream in my life. And I saw Alan in Boston, and Gigi had asked if I could give him and Jeff Downs a ride to Northampton, Mass, where they were playing the next night because they wanted to watch the World Cup together. And I said, of course. And I was thinking, I'm going to get to talk to Jeff Downs. Well, they were bushed after the concert. I didn't get to talk to him. But before the show, we're having dinner, and Alan joined my party of people who were like, Alan White? And he just comes and has dinner. And he looked at me at one point, and we were talking about nostalgia, and he said, "I missed the radio show. Why did you leave?" And, I already have survivor's guilt about, retiring, because I knew it was the right time for me. And I don't think I clearly explained it to him, but I had the chance to do what he did in a very tiny way. I had a chance to be on stage with Steve Fossen and Mike DeRozier and experience playing some of the greatest music of all time. And it was an unfulfilled dream of me. So in a way, I was a little envious of his life, but also burned out, as you guys know. So that was just, that's a moment I'll never forget, because I realized that he was a fan of the show and he missed it.
And the thing Alan was the biggest fan of was not being on that stage and being at home and working in the yard and going to McClendon's Hardware and talking to the guy about the piece of plumbing he needed for his thing. Alan, he was, obviously relished being a rock star, but he really loved being just a normal, everyday guy. And since his job, and maybe like your job was to be a radio star, his job was to tour the world, sleep in hotels, ride on airplanes, the thing he cherished the most was to not do that, to be at home, to be at the neighborhood pub. I remember the year he got to go to Seafair. It's like, finally, I get to go to Seafair. I'm not out at an amphitheater somewhere playing a show. He loved Seattle. He loved, just being part of the community. And as we know, when he did come home, there were always plenty of people asking him to play benefits and do things, including us. And he always accommodated that.
They always said,
the guy just,
yes.
Yeah, and but what he really loved was, he loved people too, because I know when the pandemic came and he had to spend more time at home and we couldn't just go and meet at the pubs and stuff. I know that hurt him because he really likes the social aspects. And I think it's a British thing. I think the British guys, they love their pubs. David Harris, good friend of Alan's and friend of ours, came in this morning to talk to my students about Salmon Days. It's his 40th year, by the way. I'll give a plug if you want to have some fun. I know Spike's going to be out there. Salmon Days is October, I think, 7th and 8th this year. David's 40th year. But David is 84 years old, and he seems younger than any of us. But what Alan loved was sitting there with his old mate, David, and, just that. That's what he liked. And that's the Alan White I'll always remember, is the guy who's mowing his grass, who's working on his car, who's, just a normal guy. And maybe it's because he was in the spotlight ever since he was a teenager. He was playing with John Lennon in his teens. So
he was 19 years old. I asked him about that, and he said, well, I was just 19. And here I am with, Eric Clapton and John Lennon and George Harrison. And I just figured, well, it's a good time. I worked hard. So I guess this happens to anybody who practices the drums and does a good job. He didn't, I was like, did you realize? And he was like, not sort of, but not entirely.
I think this will come through in the film is, he was phenomenal, and we all know at his drumming, but really what Joe was saying, and you and Spike and all the stories and what you're going to hear from people is really that what an absolute incredible just human being to be around. And that's, I think, why he did get the opportunity to play with John and George and Joe Cocker. And obviously it was his talent and his chops, but it was who he was,
Yeah.
And as we all know, we've been in studio situations. We know how all that can be, but really you want the right people in there, obviously talent, but you want the right mindset and the right personality. And Alan was just loaded with all of that. And hopefully we get that across.
And such a mentor. Caspian Coberly will be in this film. I'm sure he played it there. Young musician. All my radio students, Alan has been in this room I'm sitting in right now multiple times. Any kid that ever wanted to do an interview, he would come down here and he would do it. And that's just the kind of guy he was. Always paying it forward, always, trying to be thoughtful and helpful. And there's just not enough people like that in the world.
So bringing that all under this umbrella of Yes, I don't know this for a fact, but it sure feels to me that as the longest continuous member of Yes at 50 years, and the only reason Chris Squire didn't equal him is because Chris passed, but as the longest continuous member of Yes, knowing how many times they changed personnel, broke up, start over, reinvented themselves with 90125, and kept making incredible albums all the way up to now. There's a current Yes album out now. It seems to me that we can infer from our experiences with Alan that he was the unifying force, that perhaps, perhaps none of that would have 1983, Owner of a Lonely Heart, would that have happened? They were doing an album, actually. They were going to call the band Cinema, and they were working with Trevor Rabin, and they didn't have a singer. Now, I don't know who said, let's ask John Anderson. I do know this. You can read about these guys. They're always, have squabbled over the years, and it must have been some squabbling, but there was one guy who was never say a bad word about anybody, and always the easiest one to get along with, and probably was the peacemaker. And I'm sure that was Alan, even though I wasn't there. And I found that too, because I would interview him on the radio. I would go, "What's up with John Anderson? Why is he not playing with you?" And I just remember he would never say a discouraging word about anybody. He would say, "Well, John's got some stuff and we're just going to do this and, blah, blah, blah." And I would try to be the, remember, we used to sort of have fun where I would try to be the slightly nosy, ask the, slightly almost too irreverent question. And Alan he had this twinkle in his eye and he would smile and give you an equally sarcastic answer. And, he knew how to diffuse anything and just be a good person to everybody. So my feeling about Yes is that, to me, it's an incredible body of music recorded by gods of progressive rock. And then that idea of Yes, that feeling of Yes, continued for more than 50 years and continues to this day. And Alan is the rock solid backbeat of it all. So we're looking forward to putting together this movie. We can't tell you anything about it yet. We played you a little teaser of the music. It sounds great. The band's awesome. If you get to see them on tour, do see them. And that concludes our podcast today. It was a lot of fun. Good to see you guys.
Awesome. Awesome to see all three of you guys, Michael and Spike and Bob. And we should do it again because we didn't get to talk about this other guy that's going to the Radio Hall of Fame. I know you don't like to talk about that, but I think that's a pretty big deal. And we'll be in New York, and we should do another one before we go because that'll be coming up in November. And I think that's a pretty big deal.
Well, the best part of that for me is that all of you guys have agreed to come and that you will be there at the table, because that, the show to me always was a family. And I won't lie. Yeah, I'm not one of those people that awards don't mean anything. I'm like, yeah, that's good. And it does feel great to get the recognition. But also, me, I'm insecure, trying not to get fired the whole time we were doing the job, and just trying to have a show that would be interesting to people. So the fact that it worked out, wonderful. All right, we'll see you guys in New York, November 2nd. Perhaps we'll get another podcast in before then with Spike and Joe. Thank you to Mike McMorrow and Matt for helping us out and putting this together with Mike McMorrow Productions. Have a good one.